What if the two things you're most proud of, your talent and your ambition, are the very things sabotaging your success? It sounds like a contradiction. We're taught that talent and drive are the keys to the kingdom, and they are. But for a certain kind of person, they're also the bars of a very comfortable cage. If you're the person who feels a constant nagging gap between your potential and your reality, this is for you. If you know you're capable of more, but watch others with less skill pass you by, this is for you. You're not lazy, you're not uninspired, you're caught in a psychological trap designed to protect your ego, a trap that ensures you never have to find out if you truly have what it takes. It's a habit called self-handicapping. And today we're going to drag it into the light and dismantle it so you can finally claim the life you know you were meant to live. The agony of unfulfilled potential. Let's be honest about what this feels like. It's not just frustration. It's a quiet, chronic pain. It's the agony of having a high-performance engine but feeling your wheels spin in the mud. You have the brilliant ideas, you can see the finished novel, the thriving business, the promotion with perfect clarity. You have the ambition, but when it's time to do the actual boring day in day out work, something stops you. And so you watch the world reward consistency over genius. You see people you know aren't as smart or as creative as you are steadily climbing. They're finishing, they're shipping the work, they are allowing their effort to be judged while you're still perfecting your masterpiece in the safety of your mind. You're left wondering, what do they have that I don't? The answer is a punch to the gut. They're finishing. This gap between who you are and who you could be fuels a corrosive narrative of self-doubt. Maybe I'm not that talented after all. Maybe my ambition is just a delusion. It's a downward spiral. The weight of your unfulfilled potential becomes heavier than any single failure could ever be. Failure is an event. You learn, you move on. Unfulfilled potential is a chronic condition, the constant nagging dread that you'll get to the end of your life having never truly run the race. And the worst part? The loneliness. To the outside world, you might look fine, successful, even, but they don't see the projects abandoned at 90% done. They don't hear the brilliant ideas you talked yourself out of. They don't feel the weight of the person you were supposed to become. You feel like a fraud, not because you faked what you've done, but because you're faking your limits. You are living a smaller life than the one you are capable of, and you are the only one who knows it. The stories we tell ourselves. When we're stuck, our brain scrambles for a story, a good, logical, plausible excuse that shields us from the uncomfortable truth. We repeat these stories until they feel like facts. They are not. They are a smokescreen. The first story, I just don't have the time. Really? Is it about the clock? When a crisis hits a real emergency, you don't find time, you make time. Instantly. Everything else vanishes. The issue isn't the 24 hours in a day, it's that you don't feel a sense of emergency about your own life. It's not a calendar problem, it's a priority problem. And a deeper fear is secretly setting your priorities. The second story, I don't have the resources. I can't start until I get funding. I can't write until I have the perfect office. We build a checklist of perfect conditions that must be met before we can begin. But history is a graveyard of well-funded failures and a monument to resourceful beginners who started with nothing. A focus on what you lack is a brilliant excuse to ignore the power of what you have. It's just another delay tactic. The third story, the game is rigged. The economy, the market, the gatekeepers, your boss. Yes, challenges are real, but for the self-handicapper, they become a blanket alibi for inaction. It feels better to be a victim of your circumstances than the architect of your own stagnation. The victim story is seductive because it absolves you of responsibility, but it's a cage you build for yourself. It renders you powerless. And the most clever story of all, it's just not ready yet. Perfectionism. It masquerades as a high standard, but it's just fear in a tuxedo. Fear of being judged. Fear of putting your real flawed human effort into the world and having it not be enough. As long as it's a work in progress, it remains perfect in your mind. The moment you release it, it becomes vulnerable. So you polish and polish, not to make it better, but to keep it safe. All of these stories feel true, but they are just symptoms of the real disease. The real enemy, your ego's guard dog. So, what's the real reason? It's a psychological survival mechanism called self-handicapping. It is the guard dog of your ego. Imagine your potential as a race car. Your talent is the engine, your ambition is the fuel, but your ego is in the passenger seat, and its only job is to protect its own self-worth. The ego is terrified of one thing, finding out that if you give 100% and still lose, it means you just weren't good enough. For someone whose identity is wrapped up in being talented, this is a fate worse than death. That verdict is so terrifying, the ego will do anything to prevent the trial from ever taking place. So just before the race, your ego quietly reaches over and creates an obstacle. It procrastinates. It stays out too late the night before the big presentation. It picks a fight with a loved one. It waits until the last minute to study. It creates the excuse in advance. This is a brilliant move. It creates a win-win scenario for self-esteem. If you fail, the ego screams, Of course we failed. I was tired, I was stressed, I barely even tried. The failure is blamed on the handicap, not your ability. Your talent is still there, pure and untested. And if by some miracle you win, the ego gets an even bigger hit. Can you believe it? I won, and I wasn't even trying. Imagine how powerful I must be. This is why it's so addictive. It's a short-term emotional painkiller that guarantees long-term stagnation. You never find out how fast the car can really go. This isn't a character flaw. It's a survival instinct gone wrong, a safety feature that is suffocating you. Recognizing it is the first step to taking the wheel back. How to fight back. Understanding the trap is the diagnosis. This is the cure. It's not a magic pill, it's a retraining of your mind. It requires a willingness to feel the very discomfort you've been avoiding. First, reframe failure as data. The whole system is built on a fixed mindset, the idea that talent is all you have. Ditch it. Adopt a growth mindset, the belief that abilities are built, not just born. Failure is not a verdict on your worth, it's just information. It's a diagnostic. That approach didn't work. What did I learn? What's next? Stop saying I failed. Start saying that attempt failed. Separate your identity from the outcome. Second, practice vulnerable effort. Your ego wants to hide behind excuses. You have to expose it on purpose. You must willingly give 100% effort, knowing you might still come up short. It's terrifying. It means sending the proposal you poured your soul into. It means having the conversation you've been dreading. Start small. Pick one low-stakes thing and go all in without an escape hatch. The goal isn't to succeed. The goal is to survive the vulnerability of trying. Every time you try your best and the world doesn't end, you build proof that it's safe to go all out. Third, chase the process, not the prize. Obsessing over the huge outcome, the bestseller or the championship, just cranks up the pressure and triggers the fear. The antidote is to fall in love with the process. Don't have a goal to write a book. Your goal is to write for 1 hour today. Don't aim to get the promotion. Aim to speak up with one valuable idea in this week's meeting. You can't always control the result. You can always control your effort. Focus on winning the day. The big prizes are just the side effect of winning enough days in a row. Fourth, confess your crime. Self-handicapping loves secrecy. Drag it into the light. Pick one person, a friend, a mentor, a coach, and tell them the truth. Say it out loud. My goal is X. My self-sabotaging habit is Y. When I get scared, I start binge-watching shows. Can I check in with you on Friday? This external accountability is a guardrail. It raises the stakes just enough to make your old excuses feel cheap and transparent, even to you. That gap you feel between your talent and your results was never about your ability. It was about a subconscious habit, a ghost in the machine designed to keep you safe. It has been the silent killer of your dreams. But what is learned can be unlearned. You now see the mechanism. You have a choice. You can stay in the harbor, safe within the story of your potential. Or you can choose courage. You can choose to face the verdict of your effort. You can choose to find out once and for all what you're made of. You have the talent. You have the ambition. You were not made to play it safe. It's time to stop protecting your ego and start building your legacy. If this resonated, do 2 things. First, subscribe, because we talk about the truth of what it takes to win every single week. Second, leave a comment and declare the one excuse you are done with, starting today. Making it public is the first move. Let's start winning together.